I told myself I had to say this to begin with, that I have 2 degrees in social sciences, so I'm saying that not only to apologise for the mistakes that I'll definitely make, but also because I actually think that it's important that I know nothing about biology, and when you have a really limited understanding of biology and the way the world works, we seem to forget how bizarre it really is. There are so many strange living things out there, like at 3 Mile Island there were microbes living in the radioactive coolant water that were found there. There have been E. coli found that can live at 16,000 atmospheres of pressure. There are little shrimp that live in vents, ocean vents, in the extreme heat. There's so many strange things, but nothing compares to slime mould. and I, actually in my intro I meant to say that I'm more qualified to talk about Alan Jones than Coins of the Prime Minister, but Kate kind of stole that one from me, so. Slime mould. So you may have seen slime mould. It hangs about, you might have seen it in compost or on lawn like this, or it can be in air conditioning vents or really dirty bathrooms. Most of the time it's pretty unattractive. One of the most common types is called dog vomit slime mould. So that pretty much sums up how appealing it is most of the time. And I need to say, for the sake of accuracy, that actually there are a whole lot of different slime moulds. What I'm about to talk about doesn't apply to all of them. I'm talking about cellular slime mould, which is called dictostelida, or dicty, or yes, cellular slime mould. So a cellular slime mould, oh no! This is what happens soon. That's a preview. It exists. Alex Mack. So cellular slime moulds at different stages of life cycle exist in different ways. So most of the time it's a singular amoeba, and then other times it's part of a colony. So most of the time they're these little single-celled organisms. They feed on bacteria and other microorganisms. During times of plenty they reproduce, they expand, they can colonise an area of up to 40 metres. But they don't do very much, so they're pretty boring. It's only in times of scarcity they start doing really crazy shit, which is amazing. So they start running out of food and they send out chemical signals to each other, find each other, start moving in together. So you've got all these little single-celled organisms all gathering in together, and they form a blob, which is called plasmodium, and it becomes one blob with the cell walls disintegrate between the little individual organisms, and it becomes one with many nuclei. So it becomes like Alex Mack, basically, is where I was going. And what happens is they all come in together and they make this blob. But then they do this really kind of crazy thing where they make the shape of a slug, and they move at up to 1.35 millimetres a second, which sounds incredibly slow, but it's actually really, really fast for how big they are, and it's much faster than the individual amoeba could move, much, much faster. So they slide along till they find a kind of comfortable spot, which is basically somewhere that's airy and is bright, and they start doing this. So they start forming a stalk, and the stalk grows and grows, and they form this little base, which is kind of like a root system, and it forms a fruiting body on top. And all the little cell walls join amongst them, they become separate individual cells again, and it spores. And about 2/3 of them go flying out into the air and find a new place and go and get more food and continue their lives. And the others die off, which is a bit sad, really. I have a video here. Very exciting. So this is basically what happens. You've got all the little individual guys massing about, and they realise that there's no more food, and you'll see them start pulsating. This is them sending messages, and they join together. So they form these masses, and in a second they'll finish and become what are basically like slugs.
Oh, terrifying. I love it.
Is this real time?
This is not real time. It's a bit faster, I think, what happens. But they got these slugs, and as you can see, they move like slugs as well. So that, and in the past, they've actually been miscategorized or categorized as animals. So they were once put in the kingdom of Animalia, which is quite hilarious because they're clearly not an animal. But anyway, they're totally bizarre. Just stuff when I was Google image searching. So basically, I'll recap that. So slime mould, most of the time it just looks like a boring fungus. It just sits on the ground. This, I think it's just beginning to spore, so it's like the one you saw before. It's just pretty crappy, really. But when food becomes scarce, the slime mould cells start working together, and they move with their speed and purpose in a particular direction. They work cooperatively to allow some of the cells to find fresh food, and they sacrifice the other cells that are forming the stem and root for the greater good of the colony, which is quite bizarre. So at different points in the life cycle, they behave like plants and like animals and more like fungus. So they're quite amazing because basically you've got this really simple, non-sentient living thing which performs tasks that are really quite complex and actually appears like intelligence to us. So slime molds have some of the amazing, amazing things they've done is solving mazes. So there are many experiments that have been done. Anyone can do this experiment. You basically just put food, you put them in here, you put food sources here, and this has a number of routes through it, and the slime mould worked out the shortest route. Yeah. Slime molds have also done a couple of cool things, like this is slime mould. This is slime mould. So these are bits of oats, small oats, and the slime mould actually has worked out the most convenient route between them. And if you compare this to a map of the major routes in America, they're actually very similar. The same thing was done in Tokyo. Yeah, this is terrifying. The same thing's been done in subway systems. So they did one in Japan where they put, you know, an oat that was Tokyo and a few outlying cities, and it worked out the best routes between them. Yeah, it's quite scary. But what I think is more exciting is a study at Sydney Uni, which I think came out only last year, found slime molds can actually behave irrationally as well. So they found that the mold's decision making about food and danger can be affected by comparative. So if you put one source of food, so basically what they did is they had something which was high energy and they sat it in the sun, and they had something that was low energy and they sat in the shade, and slime mold likes shade. So 50% of the time it would go to either or. But when they put another meal next to it, which is basically like at McDonald's, they'll put something which is comparable. So we think, okay, we've got this choice, or we've got these two. The slime mold forgot rational decision making about which of these two options to have, and it chose the one in the shade more often, even though it was not as good for it as the other one. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So anyway, this is really exciting because things without brains have never been seen doing that kind of stuff before. So yeah, basically there's something, I had a quote from a guy here saying that it's surprisingly good at finding the most efficient route to food, more so than you would think something could without a brain. Another fairly recent study found that slime mold can actually farm bacteria. So about 35% of the amoeba have something inherent in them that keeps, they store the bacteria within them, and they keep it within the colony. When they spore, they take it with them. But it's not 35% of all of them, it's something inherent that those ones have. The farmers will always farm, the others will not. And it's actually an evolutionary advantage they've found to being a farmer, which is mind-blowing, really. I just found them the most amazing thing in the world. So they basically have capacity to communicate, make decisions, repurpose individual cells, sacrifice cells for the greater good, and it has huge implications for how we understand human beings and other complex multi-cell organisms. It's now actually being studied in order to better understand cancer growth. So one study looked at a gene called APC, which is related to high risk of bowel cancer in humans. And when in the slime mould, the APC protein appeared to change the way that the cells move around, and they stopped taking orders from the rest of the colony. So they're studying that to say, what does this imply about cancer growth? Apparently they have amazing similarities to us and have all sorts of genes similar to ours, including an immune system. But because from the humanities, the most exciting thing slime mould has ever done is inspired the Blob. Anyway, so that's slime mould.